Welcome to the SMB-Lawcast. I'm your host, SMB. This episode is going to be an introductory episode. It's not going to be too jam-packed with information. Normally, I would teach you the ropes of the courtroom. However, I feel to give you a good start, I'm going to be telling you my experiences in VR Chat Drama Court, how VR Chat Drama Court has evolved over the years, and how we are currently at the stage of different law firms joining, and how you can get yourself involved and how to learn from some of the greatest VR Chat Drama Court lawyers this side of the internet. Once again, I'm SMB Law Firm. Let's begin. So let's start simple. What is VR Chat Drama Court? It's a world created by a user called Chugachu. He created a kind of like a courtroom aesthetic world with a few buttons and a few evidence rooms and a few pieces of evidence to allow people who want to get into the activity of lawsuits and legal situations to flourish in an environment where they can just be themselves alongside. The importance of VR Chat Drama Court is to never take yourself too seriously. Go in with the expectation of, I'm going to make people laugh, I'm going to make people have a good time, and I'm going to leave an impact on the world, and you'll be just fine. What I do need to state, though, is sometimes there are going to be people that come in, like myself, who take it a bit more seriously. Sure, I'll make a few jokes about penises, or I'll make a few jokes about, periods and shit like that. Try and fuck about and make people laugh. But for the most part, I'm in there for the case, and I'm in there to get a verdict, and I take it quite seriously. And that's what a lot of the law groups do. Because some of them are actually professional lawyers or lawyers in education or training. So it's not. A lot of the people you're going to be meeting nowadays are less children or people who want to entertain, and more people who are trying out what they've learned in the real world, and not really in the real world, more so in a realistic world, in an actual environment where they can get away with it. VR Chat Drama Court is home to many a different nuance. For example, cross-examination of evidence, and it's also the home of the joke piece of evidence presented by some of the members of Rim and Buddies. That's something we will be discussing in a moment. And that is a very notorious side of it all, is that everybody knows about cross-examination of evidence, and slowly but surely the joke piece is starting to make its way into a more wide and global reach for the drama court. So it's becoming a more recognized piece of evidence, is that you can have an opportunity to motion for half a piece, which entitles you to make a joke piece of evidence which would not be used in cross-examination. Now, what is cross-examination of evidence? It's much like cross-examination of a witness. You get to go in, you get to question the evidence, and you get to do the role of an objective, but take a step back. Now, the more important thing to learn about this is it's not something that should be abused. It's a very powerful substance, because there are lawyers out there like myself who can look at what you provided and swipe it all off the floor. You have to be very concise in your providing of evidence. You state every little thing, even if you think it doesn't matter, because if someone comes up and questions it and you don't have an answer prepared, you're going to lose that piece of evidence at the very least. And if you have anything tied down with that piece of evidence, you're going to lose those as well, because that would be the hold-up point, and the hold-up point is gone. So the rest of your piece of evidence would possibly collapse. If you get questions such as, do you have someone to call up that can prove this? Then you say yes, and you point out that there is a witness. You don't have to say who the witness is, but you say there is a witness. Sometimes it's best to give a name and an occupation in advance, so they know who you're bringing up, and they know it's a reputable source for the situation. For example, you bring in a police report, they can pull out, do you have the officer in question here? And you can go, yes, I have Officer Bar Brady from VRCPD, and he is here to describe what the police report's relevance is. He'll be coming up next. And you can have more than one witness. A lot of judges very lenient with witness testimony, and I'll let you have up to 2 or 3 different witnesses that can come up to the stand and testimony on behalf of your side, whether you're prosecution or defense. Now let's discuss law firms. There are 3 key ones, but I'll be focusing on 2 as I have first-hand experience with them. One of them being SMB Law Firm, more of a jokey law firm. A lot of individuals there are join just because they've asked to and I've allowed it. But it's a good starting point. As SMB law firm, you'll find a lot of members there do still have the nuance of drama core and understand a lot of what's going on. We're also intertwined with Ribbon Buddies, which is another one I'll mention in a moment, and I'll discuss because I am part of Ribbon Buddies. You're intertwined with that community, so people there will recognize the symbolism of SMB law firm, and if you ask for guidance from them, they're very likely to actually give you some advice on what you might want to ask. So don't be afraid to go up to a member of Ribbon Buddies or SMB law firm, and if you think they understand better than you, always ask for help. And if you see me or Rim or Akai or any member of the teams from either side, again, we have been doing this for a while. Just come and ask. Seriously, it's not like we're going to shut you down because of it. But to discuss Ribbon Buddies, because that one I can go into more detail with. Ribbon Buddies is a public group. It has about 220 members, all of varying strength. I'd say I'm in the middle ground, but you got people like Rim, Krim, Akai, Malware Wolf. They're all in the topper end, and you got people on the lower end, and I won't name names there, but there are definitely some people who do need improvements. Let's say I'm not going to be crude to them, I'm not going to be shutting them down. They're great. There are improvements that need to be made though, and that happens when you're not experienced in the drama core and how it works. So you'd find yourself at the bottom rows, but hey, this podcast, hopefully you keep listening after episode 1. This is going to be a weekly podcast every Friday night UK time at about just before midnight. I'll be uploading a brand new episode, and you can just listen along in your own time. It will be a weekly thing with a new subject and sometimes even some guests, meaning you will hear a less studio sounding voice as we sit in a Discord call or even a VR chat world and discuss further. I'll also be releasing later down the line some video versions, sometimes with animatics, for anyone who wants to see some funny gags on the screen. Now, here's the thing with Ribbon Buddies, okay? Because it has such a variety of strengths, when you go against someone from Ribbon Buddies, you shouldn't sit there and instantly think that you are going to lose just because there is a group in front of you. Ribbon Buddies has been seen as that kind of group for a while, and it's not. There are some people who go in there and we fumble the bag. We are human, we're not going to always win. You need to take the opportunity to process what they're saying in their opening statement, realize if you're going to be screwed or not, and sometimes it's okay to ask for another co-counsel or a little bit of extra help. A lot of judges are also very lenient and will let you just call another person in that you think could be experienced. And again, maybe it's worth looking for a Ribbon Buddies member, maybe it's worth looking for somebody who seems like they know what they're doing. One bit of advice, never look for somebody who just has a lawyer outfit like Saul Goodman or Phoenix Wright. Just because they have that does not mean that they understand what they're going to say. It just means they've come dressed for the occasion, expecting to come in. I'm also going to be discussing for the next couple of minutes different functions in the drama court which might help you when you're in the position of a judge. Let's start simple. You have a bailiff and a stenograph. The stenograph's role is to sit there and write down anything that is being said of importance. It's pretty much like having a one-to-one dialogue readback and a transcript of what's happening in the case. However, a lot of the time stenographs will just write it in bullet points in the drama court because it makes it easier to refer back to later, and if they have to shout out and correct somebody when they're saying something wrong, say they're using the wrong city or the wrong age for a person that they brought up, then it's easy for the stenograph to just go, excuse me, you actually meant to blah 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 blah. So that's the role of the stenograph. The role of the bailiff is to keep the court under control. When nobody's listening to the judge, when they're trying to get order inside of the courtroom, bailiffs have the right to go up and tell people to shut up, and if they don't, a lot of bailiffs have subscribed to Chuggachu's Patreon, which is $5 to get access to the respawn gun. That's one of 3 of the key function points. The respawn gun is to remove anybody in the courtroom that shouldn't be in the courtroom. It's also there for if members of the jury are being unruly, and it sends you right back to the first spawn point, meaning you'd have to work your way back into the courtroom, or you'd have to find yourself a seat in the jury aisle. This is great for if you have children in the courtroom who don't know when it's not their turn to speak, and it gives you a moment of silence to actually get across the point from either the prosecution or defense, or even the judge if they're giving closing statements on their behalf and closing verdicts. The next things are shackles. These are mainly for roleplay purposes. The individual inside of the cell would have to hold them like you would hold a regular object in both hands. Then there's a key. The key is for the cage. The cage itself doesn't open, but the individual will sit down inside the cage and they cannot get off of their seat no matter how hard they move unless they respawn back into the spawn point of the world. Beyond that, you have to then kind of give them the key if they are found guilty, and if they are found not guilty, you can keep them in the cage for a further trial or let them out and they'd have to respawn as they have been now sent to jail. Then there's the evidence rooms. There are 2 different evidence rooms on each side. The one on the prosecution side is accessible by both sides, and it includes physical evidence. On the bailiff/defense side, there's a door that leads to paper evidence. Once again, accessible by any member of the lawyers. So it doesn't matter what side you're on, you have full access to the evidence rooms, and you should not be limited by anything. And if a judge tries to limit you, let them know that's not how it works, because you do need both sides. Say you bring out a paint bucket in a graffiti case or vandalism. You're going to need forensic proof that the paint bucket and brush are theirs, not just some random hobos that you took off the street. The only other thing to mention are the buttons before the judge. If you are the judge in this case, you will have an assortment of buttons. Some are accessible by you and the bailiffs, and some that are only accessible by you. The 2 big ones are the drop court and drop jury. Once again, unruly courtrooms, individuals who's not meant to be in the court, jury just not having any patience. You can drop the aisle of the jury, you can drop the entire courtroom floor, and people will fall through if they are unfortunate enough to be standing on them. For the sake of people who are interested, there are collision buttons, and I won't be describing where they are in this episode, as I will be doing a full breakdown of the actual layout and the actual flow of court in the next episode. That is the next subject I'm going to be doing, is specifically about how the courtroom runs. But next to it is a button to respawn items alongside a button to open the courtroom doors. The courtroom doors and the drop court buttons are exclusively accessible to the judge. Anyone else can have access to any other buttons. Just those 2 are only accessible by the judge. Next to them are soundboard buttons. These include a gasp, a dun-dun, which is taken directly from Law and Order, a 1-minute timer, and a 2-minute timer. The 1-minute and 2-minute timers are usually used for briefing witnesses and collection of evidence. They are great because it gives you a good time span of how long each side will need before the bailiff will go on and collect them themselves, no matter what they've got or what they've been told. The only other thing to mention is the actual way to enter the courtroom. It's quite simple. When you've hit the lobby, you'll see a wall of Employee of the Month and a door next to it. You just walk into the door, it'll take you straight there. Some doors, however, such as the doors to the evidence room, require you to hit a button to go in, quite like sitting down on chairs. Now, sitting down on chairs as well, I'm going to mention them. Each chair, you're allowed to get up and down, except for the ones inside the cage. There are 2 on the bailiff side, on the defense side. There are 3 on the prosecution side, and there are 3 on the main stage and a witness seat. People are not allowed to sit in the witness seat until they are called to the stand. If an individual comes in and they sit down in the witness seat, please remind them that they need to leave the courtroom, as it is not actually allowed for a witness to just wander themselves in and pronounce themselves as a witness to the crime. That could lead to ulterior motives. You need to have a clear-cut witness who you can say what you need to say with. Brief them. Make sure you got a witness in and you give them the information you need, not what they believe you need. The only other thing to mention is a key amount of people you should watch out for in the courtroom for taking notes on how each role works. If you're looking to be a judge, best person to look out for is either negative or malware wolf. If you're looking to be a bailiff, look out for Beals or Worm. If you're looking to be a stenograph, it's quite easy, just get yourself a pen and paper. If you're looking to be prosecution, look out for me, Rim, or Emp Brain. And if you're looking to be defense, look out for, once again, me, Rim, Moriarty, or if you're feeling a little spicy and you want to be a funny guy, look out for either Fluffy or Blue Dog. That's going to be it for the first episode on what you should do, and welcome to the courtroom. This is pretty much just a sample episode so that I can gauge whether you guys are interested in more. But I feel like it'll be a great experience for us to learn together and have some guests on who know a bit more about the drama court than I admittedly do. Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for episode 2 next week when we talk about the layout of the courtroom and the flow of court. Court is adjourned.